Construction estimating, you're in the right place. I'm gonna be sharing with you how to create fast, accurate, and surprise-free estimates for your clients. All right, jumping in. So I'm gonna be going through the 4 different phases of building out an estimate and building your system for estimating. All about systems and processes. So in order to do things quickly and accurately, we need to have some setup in place. That's gonna be where we're gonna start. And then all the way at the end is gonna be the proposal for the actual, what it looks like, giving it to the client and everything in between. So stay tuned. Give this video a big thumbs up if you got value out of it. If it's going to come up in the video where it's like, oh, that makes sense, or wow, I wish I knew that sooner. Give this video a thumbs up. Appreciate it. Helps me make more great content for you. So the setup, the first thing that we're going to be talking about, getting your software in place. Hopefully you already have some software. If you don't, search around, figure out what works best. A lot of guys start out just using their accounting software like QuickBooks. You could have something more specific, like a project management software, similar to Buildertrend or construction foreman, something like that. Get your software in place though. That's really important. You're gonna need something. Spreadsheets do work. I don't really suggest it, but you can build out an estimating software from just a simple spreadsheet like Google Sheets or what have you. Once you got that set up, you're gonna wanna build templates, and you can think about whenever you're doing work in a business, how can you do something one time and it continue to pay you and continue to work for you for as long as you run your business and well into the future. So templates is one of those ways. If you're doing like a kitchen renovation, once you're done that kitchen renovation, that could then be your template. Just change a few things, and whenever you are building a template, you want to build it as big as possible. So you want a big template so you can just delete things out of there when you are estimating a project. So if you got a really big kitchen, proposal estimate template, and you're doing a smaller kitchen, you just delete things out, right? It's easy to take stuff out. If it doesn't have an island, delete the island. If it doesn't have in-floor heating, just delete the in-floor heating. So all that kind of stuff. Templates are key though to making sure that things are accurate. So because you have this big built out template, you're not going to forget things, right? If you're always doing estimates from scratch or using old projects as your template to estimate, new projects, have old pricing, it's a different project. It could have, things in there that you forget about. Whereas with a template, you can have everything in there so that nothing gets forgot about. Even if you don't need it, you just take it out like I mentioned before. Finally, the last thing to get, your system set up to get started with estimating is cost codes. So cost codes is kind of it's a little bit higher level as far as knowing how to use them properly and which ones to put in your business. It can depend on your business, obviously. I do have a separate video all on cost codes and how to get that set up in your business. So I'm not going to go into it in length here, but essentially cost codes is just, numbered lists of the different types of items that you're going to have in your estimate. And the reason you want to do this is for consistency. It also helps for tracking later. So, you can track from your estimate the cost code to the actuals on site. So if you estimated, 20 hours of interior finishing labor on this project, later in your accounting software, because you're running cost codes, you can look at it and hey, on this project, it took 50 hours of interior finishing. What the hell? Why is my estimate so far off? What happened? Maybe there was some change order that I should have put through that didn't go through, or we just grossly, underestimated the amount of time it was going to take. So without that information, you can't improve your estimating process. So that's why cost codes are so important, because you may be losing money or you may be overpricing stuff without knowing the actuals of that feedback loop. So that's why cost codes are so important. If you want help with any of this, there are links in the description. I'll be sharing with you some bonuses later of things that you can get to really, up your level of estimating overall. Second thing, moving on. So after you got everything set up is pricing. So the pricing is of course important, because you want to be pricing competitively, but you also want to be pricing profitably. And those things don't always go together perfectly. So you want to be getting a cost database in place. This will be your database of costs, and that'll go into your estimating software so that when you pull through, your labor rates for interior finishing, or maybe, plumbing, maybe you got your journeyman, or your red seal or whatever, you're going to have different labor rates. So that all should be pulled through and be pulling from a solid database of costs so that you can fluctuate those costs and it pulls into your estimate whenever prices change, which they do. And so you don't have to go hunting around for like, oh, how much is a 2x4? How much is Peck's plumbing line? How much is this or that? You shouldn't have to go searching around every estimate you're doing. It should all be in the database, so it's quick, it's easy, it pulls through, and it's all set up for you. So get that set up. Usually just a spreadsheet, and there's ways where this can be tied to actual suppliers that you use, or even just like other databases, but that's for, that's getting a little bit in depth. Next thing you want to look at for pricing is your overhead markup, of course. How much extra you're charging. So it's going to cost you, 10 grand on labor and 20 grand on materials. How much extra should you be charging to make a profit, to cover your overhead? So these kind of things, you don't want to just be pulling it out of a hat. Overhead markup, generally, low end for maybe like large commercial projects, or something where it's, just a very like management style project, you might have 10%, 15% overhead markup. Whereas if you're more of a tradesperson, or maybe, just self-employed person, then maybe your markups are more like 50 or 100% even. So it can really range, and you don't want to pull this out of a hat of like, oh, that seems about right, should be making money. You need to go to your actual finances and look in your books of your bookkeeping of like, what is my overhead? What's my burn rate for money every month, whether I have 1 job, 0 jobs, 100 jobs, what am I burning, and how much do I need to make sure I'm making on projects to cover my overhead, and then have markups so I'm profitable at the end of the day. Plus, paying for your own living expenses and your lifestyle, right? So very important to nail that down. Other things you want to be thinking about is management. So what pricing do you put on for management? I see this common mistake. I made this when I started estimating. I wasn't charging for management for many years. I came from a subcontracting background where I started my business, but then I moved into general contracting and renovations. And I was, the typical business owner running around to the sites. I had foremen, I had some managers more on site, but not like project managers. I was doing that at the time, and I wasn't charging for my time. I was thinking my overhead markup will just, it'll cover that. So I'm not going to worry about, charging for management. I didn't think about it, but it is so important. How much time are you going to devote to a project? Because you've got to manage it. You got to order materials. You got to coordinate guys. You got to talk with clients. You have to, get them information. You maybe have to figure out certain, types of construction, or deal with, the city permits, whatever. How much time are you putting into that? And you should be charging for that time. Typically for a project manager, depending on your area and your business, but for project management, anywhere from $75 to $150 an hour is very typical and common. So make sure you're factoring that into your estimating, because later, even if you are doing the management, you want to be in a position financially where you can hire someone to take over that role from you. And if you're not charging properly for it, you won't have money to pay someone to do it for you. So you'll always be stuck in that, at that level of business. Does that, make sense? So that's pricing. Super important, obviously, with the pricing. The third part of construction estimating, these are, going in order here to really improve your construction estimating, because estimating is like, it's where everything starts, right? If you have a bad estimating process, you can't expect to make money on the back end, because if you're not effective with estimating, the amount of time it takes to get the estimate to a client affects your sales, and then the amount that you sell projects for, the estimating you do, affects your profitability and your financial future when you actually get into the project. If you've underbid a project, you just set yourself up for failure. Whereas if you've overbid and you got lucky and things still went through, or you hit the mark with your estimating, your profitability and your business will continue to hum and grow throughout the future. So super important. Third thing we're talking about here, still with me, calculating process. So this is all about how do you actually calculate, like how do you figure out the numbers, right? So your cost database that we mentioned earlier, you're going to have multipliers in there. A lot of times this is like your lineal footage, square footage, surface area, things like that. So you can have assemblies. So assemblies could be exterior walls. You've got your studs, your insulation, siding, drywall, everything that goes with that. You get a linear foot takeoff for if you do new builds, or or whatever. And then from there, it can easily spit out a number, right? You just need a multiplier for that of what's the going rate. Same with labor. So you're going to have your labor rates. Again, multipliers, pretty self-explanatory, but take a bit of time to figure it out and think about everything, right? So drywall, yeah, maybe drywall, whatever, $2 a square foot for drywall. But what about the acoustic seal? What about, put poly behind the walls? What about the screws that go into it? What about the taping, the finishing? So really think about these extra things that maybe if you're quoting materials or even labor, like what's all this extra stuff that goes into it, tools, rentals, all that kind of stuff, and make sure that your multipliers are accurate. What I always like to do too, when I finish an estimate, I would do a mental walkthrough of like, okay, we're going to show up on site. We've got to set things up. We've got to put out this floor protection. We've got to get our tools. We're going to start with this part of the project. This phase is going to go into that. So just do a mental walkthrough, and it's like, hey, wait, I forgot to add, whatever. Maybe I forgot, like, wait, we're putting new polylights in, so we're probably gonna have to do drywall repairs on the ceiling. I forgot to put in drywall, patching or whatever. So do a mental walkthrough, like picture yourself or your guys going through whatever they're gonna do on site. And that'll usually like make you think about things that you forgot. Finally, things that often do get forgot about when you're calculating estimates is miscellaneous. So a lot of guys are a little bit hesitant to put miscellaneous on their quote because the client's like, well, why am I paying for miscellaneous? Like, what does that mean? Either you can explain it like, hey, we know every project, there's going to be some stuff that comes up and we account for that because we know there's going to be some miscellaneous stuff that comes up. Or you could do it as like a site maintenance fee or, just add it in somewhere else. Sort of that makes sense. But you want to be having a little bit of buffer for things that you haven't accounted for that come up. And this is a great way to, cover your ass for one, but also save face a little bit where if clients, you get into a project and something's not quite going right, or there's something that's kind of on the fence where it's like, I could charge for extra for this, like with a change order, but it's kind of such a small thing. I don't know if I, really want to, and it might, damage the relationship a bit because they just think I'm trying to like get some money out of them, like out of the customer or whatever. So you got a little bit of buffer in there. You can smooth out some of those patches or just be covered if something does go wrong that you, go over budget for whatever reason. So that's one thing. Project management, as I mentioned before. And then finally, do a full review of it with somebody else. So if you got a foreman, lead carpenter, whoever, just do a quick 10-minute review and just, hey, we could just run through this estimate. Did I forget anything? Does the pricing seem right? Maybe because they're closer to the tools, they'll be like, man, there's no way we're gonna demo this kitchen in 2 hours. It takes us like 4 hours or a full day to demo something like that because we got to do setup. We've, got to get stuff out to the dumpster and if there's weather or whatever, so they might have insights and alert you to things, and it just increases the accuracy and only takes maybe an extra, 5 or 10 minutes just to run through it with another person. So that's all about the calculating process. Final thing I'm going to be touching on, number 4, one of the most important parts, because this is like the client facing side of it, is the proposal. So this is the actual, you've done the estimating, you've done the construction estimate, but how does it look? Like, is it just, how does it look and how do you present it to the client is so important. I'm a big fan of itemized proposals. I know some contractors, I'll say old school guys too. I find more the kind of the newer construction companies are fairly good at this, whereas some of the kind of the older companies are more like, I just give them a price. Either they say yes or they say no. Otherwise, I'm on to the next guy. Forget about it. But itemized, I think it really speaks a lot to trust because clients can see, it's going to cost this much for that, this much for that, this much for that. And, you may have a bit more back and forth where they're like, hey, I think, I can do this cheaper. I don't want to do this because it's over budget or what have you. But I feel that if 2 proposals are presented to them, even if one's a little higher than the other one, one's itemized with all the different costs that are going into the different stages of the project or however, detailed you want to get. One is just like, bottom price, $180,000. It's like, what am I paying for with $180,000? Whereas one's, $190,000 or $200,000, but it's got everything listed. It's like the comfort level is a lot better for itemized pricing. So I'm a big fan of that. Your proposal should have that. And professional. So have your logo on there. Have, like, I often tell my clients have like kind of a landing page where a client can go to the landing page. It's got a little blurb about your company, a few little things, maybe a testimonial. I've got a template for it, but have something there, and then they click on the link, and then it brings it to their estimate so they can see it. If you're doing it in person, make sure that it's printed on nice paper with a bit of color, that it pops a bit. Take a little bit extra time, a little bit extra money to make sure that your proposals really look sharp, because that is what they're going to carry around, and that's how they're going to be looking at yours and any competitors. It's kind of the first feel they get as far as the pricing and how things look. So super important with the proposal. If you want more help with creating this whole estimating system and really, boosting your level with estimating, check out the links in the description below. Got a free template in there, as well as a full course on how to do this. Everything super in depth with templates, with training videos, with a free implementation session. That's a bonus with purchasing the program. So you and myself would go through implementing a whole complete estimating system. Make sure your estimates are super fast, super accurate. You're not getting any surprises when you start the project of, I forgot something. So make sure to check out the links below. And as always, got tons of other great content and videos coming up. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching.